Hello, my name is Trevor McKinney, and I'm a program manager for one of our enrollment teams in the Systems Navigation Department at Developmental Pathways. Today, we're going to discuss the intake and enrollment process for the HCBS SLS waiver. A quick overview of what we'll talk about today. We will discuss the initial intake process. We'll talk about qualifications for the SLS waiver, and we'll also review enrollment steps with your enrollment case manager. To begin, let's discuss the process for intake and enrollment. The process can be lengthy to enroll onto the SLS waiver. Timelines for completing intake and enrollment steps are case by case. Some of the major milestones that you'll complete include having a disability determination done. You'll be screened for an appropriate program. You'll complete a first benefits check to establish Medicaid state plan or Medicaid health insurance. You will complete assessments including the 100.2 and SIS assessments. You will apply for long-term care Medicaid, which establishes eligibility for the SLS waiver. You'll select providers and services through a request for proposal or RFP process. And you will confirm those services and providers during the service plan meeting with your enrollment case manager. After all of this is completed, you will then move on to an active case manager for ongoing case management services. In order to receive IDD services and supports through your local case management agency like Developmental Pathways, you must first be determined to meet the state of Colorado's criteria for intellectual or developmental disability. The state defines an intellectual or developmental disability as someone who has an impairment prior to the age of 22, someone who has a qualifying intellectual or developmental disability or related condition, having either an IQ or adaptive score of 70 or below, and having impairments not solely attributable to physical, mental health, or sensory impairments. Let's talk about the determination process next. We have a talented intake team who can support through the determination process with you. To start the process, we recommend submitting a referral through our online intake form located on the Contact Us page of the Developmental Pathways website. With this online form, you can access the Request for Determination document. This form is used to indicate your interest in exploring IDD services and supports. You will also find a release of information that may be needed as well. You can submit any supporting documentation you have with that initial referral to speed up the process. There is a 90-day deadline to submit all the necessary documentation for prospective clients. Once that paperwork is submitted, Developmental Pathways will then have 30 days to process the paperwork and get back to you. As mentioned earlier, the first document we need is the request for determination to indicate interest in pursuing IDD services and supports. This also helps us gather some basic demographic information. Next, for diagnosis, we accept paperwork from a medical professional with a qualifying diagnosis. Some examples of qualifying diagnoses could include, but are not limited to, Down syndrome, autism, ADHD, Prader-Willi syndrome, epilepsy, or intellectual disability. For testing, we are looking for either IQ or adaptive scores. Sometimes folks have this already completed and can be found on their IEPs or evaluation reports from schools, psychological evaluations, or other documentation forms. Don't forget to ensure any testing has signatures from the evaluators. If you do not have testing, we can provide you with a list of testing sites that can facilitate anything that may be needed. We also encourage folks to reach out to their doctors, therapists, and school supports to see what they have on hand or what they may be able to facilitate. In order for an IQ test to be valid, it must have been completed within a certain time frame. If the individual applying is between the ages of 5 and 17, we just need one IQ test that was completed after the individual's 5th birthday. If the individual applying is 18 or older, then we have two options. Option 1 is we can accept one IQ test done after their 18th birthday, or option 2, we can accept 2 IQ tests done at any time that show a history of qualifying scores. For the adaptive testing, we are looking at evaluations done within the last 3 years, regardless of age of the individual applying. For both IQ and adaptive scores, the state requires that the scores be at 70 or below to be qualifying. We also do accept the 90% confidence interval of 70 or below as well. This confidence interval gives us a range that the score may fall between. It adds a little bit of flexibility for us and the scoring criteria. We accept a wide range of IQ and adaptive tests as well. Here is a list of some of the most frequently provided tests, including the Wechsler Intelligence Scale or Differential Ability Scale for IQ, and the Vineland Adaptive Behavior Scale or Adaptive Behavior Assessment System for adaptive testing. The paperwork you will be provided will also give you a whole list of assessments we accept. We would encourage you to submit what you have and let us review and notify you if we need anything additional. And one more plug for making sure that all testing has a valid signature on them as well. Once the determination process has been completed, or even during the determination process, your intake case manager will complete the Colorado intake screen with you. The purpose of this screening is to understand the needs of the individual at a high level and help them decide if moving forward to a Medicaid waiver or a state general fund program is appropriate. We'll gather some information and help you determine the appropriate route forward. If the route forward is a Home and Community-Based Services or HCBS Medicaid waiver, we'll discuss the various options with you. Colorado currently has 10 waivers, including 6 for individuals who are 18 or older. HCBS waivers are helpful to some because they waive certain eligibility and income requirements to allow access to Medicaid state plan benefits, provide access to various home and community-based services, and overall allow folks access to the supports they need while keeping them in the home. Although HCBS Medicaid waivers do waive some eligibility requirements, there still is some criteria and information that we must collect. At various points in the intake and enrollment process, we will collect documentation to verify citizenship, confirm active Medicaid, confirm a disability determination was completed by either Social Security or Medicaid, have a form signed by a doctor, and request other documentation as needed. After you've completed the case management agency intellectual or developmental disability determination with your intake case manager, and you've chosen a waiver, the next step is to apply for Medicaid and confirm that Medicaid is in place. Home and community-based service waivers require someone to be eligible for long-term care Medicaid. This means not only do they qualify for basic Medicaid state plan benefits, but they must also obtain a disability determination from either Social Security or Medicaid. Their disability determination process is different than the one that you will have just gone through with your intake case manager. Long-term care Medicaid also requires that any trusts in the individual's name must be approved by the state through the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing, or HCPF. For more information on trusts and this process, there's a wonderful benefits overview presentation that we encourage you to view. After you've applied for initial Medicaid, or sometimes called Medicaid State Plan, you will then be assigned to an enrollment case manager with our enrollment department. The enrollment case manager will reach out to you to schedule a 100.2 assessment and collect a professional medical information page, sometimes known as the PMIP form. The 100.2 assessment and PMIP help establish eligibility for long-term care Medicaid. Again, long-term care Medicaid allows access to the HCBS waivers, including the SLS waiver. The 100.2 assessment must be completed in person in the individual's residence. The assessment reviews activities of daily living and where an individual might need support in their daily life. The 100.2 assessment also must be completed every year to maintain that long-term care Medicaid eligibility. The enrollment case manager will also set up a SIS assessment, or Support Intensity Scale assessment, to help determine support level and funding for the HCBS SLS waiver. This SIS assessment reviews home and community-based living, employment, health and safety, and more. It is similar, but not the same as the 100.2 assessment. Also, the SIS assessment will only be done one time in an individual's lifetime. To reiterate, Long-term care Medicaid allows access to all HCBS waivers, including the SLS waiver. We work with our county partners, and this process may take some time. Next, let's talk about selecting services and providers. The enrollment case manager will talk to you about selecting services on the SLS waiver and choosing providers that you'd like to work with. There are many different services on the SLS waiver, and the enrollment case manager will guide you through what each service can help with. Once you have an idea of which services you're interested in, the enrollment case manager will send out a request for proposal, or RFP, to all providers who will offer those services in the area. This process is done anonymously. We will only send out RFPs with anonymous information about an individual's preferences, activities of daily living, their support needs, etc. Providers who are interested in working with you will then respond to that RFP, not knowing who you are. The enrollment case manager will then collect a list of those providers who are interested in working with you and deliver it to you. You can then call these providers and hold meet and greets, set up some time to talk to them, and learn a little bit more about them to see if it's a good fit. After we've received long-term care Medicaid approval and providers and services have been selected, the enrollment case manager will then schedule a service plan meeting with you. This meeting will confirm all services and providers, the delivery of those services. You will talk about individual goals, and finally you'll collect signatures to authorize the service plan. Service plans are held every year to renew services as well. Once services begin, the enrollment case manager will pass your case to an active case manager who you will then work with on an ongoing basis. You can always change your services throughout the year by contacting your active case manager and requesting a revision to your service plan. Let's review a little bit about what we talked about today. The first step in this whole process is initial outreach and gathering information. Next, we will complete determinations, apply for Medicaid benefits, complete assessments including the 100.2 to establish long-term care eligibility. You'll select providers and services, and then finally you'll complete the service plan. Once all of this has been completed, your enrollment is complete and you will move on to an active case manager. The process for completing enrollment onto the SLS waiver can be lengthy, anywhere from 2 to more than 12 months. We will partner with you to make this process as quick and easy as possible. Our teams are here to help guide you along the way through this difficult process. To learn more or to get started with our intake team, please contact us by calling or visiting our website at dpcolo.org/getstarted, or you can call 303-858-2260. Thank you so much for your time and your interest, and we hope to hear from you soon.